I want to welcome everyone back to the channel, Real Natives. My next guest here, they said get a real one, so I got a real one here. I want to go ahead and let him introduce himself. Go ahead, brother.
Thank you for allowing me to come here. My name is Priest Martinez. I am from the Redwood Valley Rancheria in Redwood Valley. I also am Wapu from my grandfather's side in Alexander Valley. I definitely grew up in Santa Rosa, though. I was kind of half reservation, half city Indian. They have this term called I grew up in the roundhouse. I didn't, but I definitely am all in on the cultural aspect side. But when it comes down to it, I believe in everything that happens for a reason. I also believe in everything has a purpose in this world. So, with that being said, I thank that my ancestors for allow me to be here and to have this voice that I have nowadays. And if we're going to talk about cultural and traditions, that's my thing. If we're going to talk about um, prison, that's my thing. If we're going to talk about what we're going to give hopes to the kids, that's definitely what I do in life. I have a bunch of aspects, and I can't wait to get into this.
All right, thank you. Thank you. I do appreciate you taking time out of your day and joining us. I know you are a busy man, but let's go ahead and acknowledge your ancestors. When the people, I know who you are. A lot of people know who you are in Northern California. You're well known up there. Yeah, there's people that across the state of California and then across the country, they're going to be witness. You want to give acknowledgement to your people.
So definitely, my people are Evangeline Catherine Martinez is my grandmother. My mother is Roseanne Martinez. Me and my mom grew up in Santa Rosa until the age of 18 when I got to experience tribal housing on a reservation. Before then, I was brought up by my grandmother, Evangeline. We called her Nana, but she was definitely the person that taught me my compassion in my life. And I also have a grandfather named Mahungus, which is Lawrence Delgado Martinez the second. Um, and he was a very inspirational man that taught me a lot about life. And he was also part Mexica, Mexican. And so that was a good aspect also. And then I have to bring up my father. My father was Gary Straw. He was from Cloverdale Rancheria, and my grandmother was Maria Straw. They were all grew up in Santa Rosa. So, like I said, I have a lot of avenues in and if I also take into consideration, I'm part UK on Hopland too. And if I go even further back, I have ties to Round Valley. I also have ties to Big Valley, and I also have ties to Dry Creek. So that's my little lineage. And if I go any further, I'll start getting into the 1800s. I'll start getting into when before they called us even Indians, like what they put us in the records. I love the history of where we came from in our community today.
Thank you, brother, for sharing your family tree. Much appreciated. And you had also mentioned that you grew up off the reservation and then on the reservation. You're one of those. Not too many of us have. Grew up off and on. You want to explain a little bit what it was like growing up off the reservation, being native, and then growing up on the reservation, being native. And if you could pinpoint those reservations you grew up on and share a little bit about how it was for you as a child.
Dang, that's a good concept and a good topic to talk about because and I'll just say this, that all reflects around the fact that there is a difference on reservation and off reservation and it because of stigma. So for me, I grew up in Santa Rosa and also Windsor. We had a house in called Taco Flats in Windsor that because my grandmother, my grandfather were pickers and they were also pick grapes, pears, and all those things. So they had an opportunity to build their own home, and so that's where I grew up was in Windsor, California. But I also when my grandmother passed away, it was just me and my mom, and so we experienced a lot of things in Santa Rosa, and I got to see the aspects of, it was regular day to day for me, but some people say it's homelessness or just couch surfing or going from family to family. it was kind of hard growing up in Santa Rosa because there's a lot of influences growing up back there. For me, it was the alcohol and drugs was a daily thing in your home. And it didn't stop. The party didn't stop. It was the first and 15th checks, and you kind of got used to, partying going on, and that's when you really had food. And also like growing up in South Park. I grew up in South Park from the age of 12 up until I left Santa Rosa. And I have to say that was probably one of the best experiences I ever had. And not to say it was great, but it was one of the things that made me who I am today, where I have my confidence that I had, is because you had to live, the struggle, you had to survive, you had to go out there and, and everybody's a victim. And, if you don't want to be a victim, you got to become one of those people that take advantage of others. So, when I was younger, I was kind of a big kid. So what I did is I challenged those people that wanted to treat me like disrespectful, chase me around, beat me up, shoot, stab. I've had it all done to me, and I survived that much, and just so you know that like before the gangs in Santa Rosa, like not the real gangs, but before South Park became like a regular street gang, like we were there holding it down. And and I got to get it props to the guys that are still down there. But it's hard being Indian when you're living in a place where there's nothing but gang infestation. It's super hard. And my uncles, every time I go visit, are like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I don't know, man. I got to survive down here." And so, you got to do what you got to do. But, the day that I got busted for a crime that had to do with hurting somebody with salt, I didn't know what jail looked like or juvenile hall. And once you get in there, it becomes super real. Like, I don't wish that on any of my enemies. I don't wish that for anybody that thinks or glorifies that, that's the type of way to live. And this is just the earlier part of my life. And it becomes gladiator school where you don't have a chance to say no, or you don't want to do those things. Like it's totally different in there. And I'll just say like this, like avoid it at all costs. Do what you got to do to not be a gang member. Do what you got to do to stand on your own 2 feet. And for me, I had to do what I had to do, and be the best that I had to be. And in order to do that, you had to fight almost every day, twice, 3 times a day. And so where I brought myself to was that, you know, um, I had my uncle send me a letter, right, in juvenile hall, and he's like, "What are you doing? Like, this isn't something that you're making your grandmother proud." And I was like, "Man, you're right." So I went and I was like, "Look, man, I'm an Indian. I'm from here." And that was probably one of the hardest things, was telling your people that took care of you in juvenile hall and stuff, like, "Hey, man, I got to go run Indian." Like, so being Indian was even harder, like running Indian. And then they didn't jump you out of gangs back then. You just had to go prove yourself and do what you got to do and stick with your people. And so, like, converting that over to getting home and then coming home to South Park and watching all these gang members all around, like, damn, that just blew up. That's crazy. But for me, I was like, man, I'm Indian. Like, and they're like, what is an Indian? Like, nobody knew what an Indian was. I did, you know what I mean? Because I had to go to do time, and there's maybe one or two Indians in the whole facility, and you're all by yourself, and you got to protect each other, So it was kind of different for me. My tribe gave us housing, and I ended up moving, I think at the age of 16. I know it was 89, and we moved to Redwood Valley Rancheria, and man, it was night and day. Like there was land, there was beautiful mountains, there was no fences, there was no cops running around. And I'm not just saying like the res is like different, but I felt safe there. I felt like I could actually relieve myself of all the tension I had growing up in Santa Rosa. And so when I moved to the res, and then there's this lady, Barbara Grauman, and she's a bit, I call her mom nowadays, but what she did was took us, all of us young kids that came from Santa Rosa and Windsor, all the ones who grew up. She's like, look, we have a culture. And we're like, what is a culture? Like, what is that? Like, we go to church. You know what I mean? Like we went, I did catechism, I did baptism, I did all that. And then she goes, no, like your people have a culture. And so what she did is she brought up Clarence and Dave Smith. And I'll just say, man, ever since then, life has been a super change for me because I have something to believe in, right? And that's that cultural aspect and having something stable, you know. But it doesn't mean that the res life wasn't that easy. I'm just saying, like growing up in Santa Rosa and having that type of attitude and coming to Ukiah and having the res life now was totally different because there was a bunch of other res kids up here in Ukiah. And I met this one kid. His name was dang it. I think it was he was I forgot his name, but what he did is he pulled me aside. He goes, you can't wear red shoes here. I was like, what's wrong with red? He goes, these guys are gang members here. They're gonna jump you. I said, nah, nobody jumps me. Like this place is so soft. Sure enough, before the end of the day, I got jumped right there in that high school. I was like, oh man, here we go again. But the Indians were different there. The Indians were definitely different there, and it could be, it's all exercise when you come down to it. But in the end, I realized that like family and community means much more to me, you know. And no matter how much times I go to prison or I go to jail back in my past, the only people that were ever there for me were my mom, aunts, and my uncles, and my family. And I know that I could talk forever, Sal, but I'm gonna go ahead and let you ask the next question.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. It's about you. It's about your story. And again, this platform is for us to be able to archive and share our stories with our future generation coming up. When we're making our spiritual journey, they're going to come back and watch us, see the real native, see what we're talking about. And we had this conversation before we went on the air that it's been about 20, 30 years since we had spoken to each other. I remember crossing paths with you. I believe it was in the mid 90s to the early 90s, and you were known to be about that business. You were known to be about that life up there. And then all of a sudden, I went on my own journey. You want to explain what journey you went on just to share? You had mentioned you went to prison and stuff like that. So if you want to share with the younger demographic what it's like entering into a facility when there's a handful of us natives and then the woods, the north, the south, the Cribs, blood, or go ahead, please share, brother.
Definitely, man. So it's kind of hard to shake all your trauma that you've been through all your life. So when I end up moving to Ukiah and I end up establishing myself and when says Sal says with the business, I felt that Redwood Valley didn't have a footing anywhere, so I had to be the lead. Like, man, we got to put a foot on the ground around here and kind of put some pressure to make sure that the next generation don't have to go through these struggles of, man, like taking advantage of. We got to make a name for ourselves. So, in the midst of doing all those things and all the fighting and all the protesting that we did, I end up catching some time. And during my first prison visit, you know, it wasn't fun. It definitely wasn't fun. No matter what people say, you know, those doors when you walk into San Quentin are the biggest things you ever see in your life. And once those two doors open like this, and the people that you see in there, it becomes a reality of, man, why did I just get myself in trouble to do this? This is crazy. And you walk up these steps, and it's 5 flights of steps. And usually, when you're a fish, and that's your first time going in there, your housing's way on the fifth tier, where it's the loudest, it's the smokiest. It's where like that place never stops going. Like it's the loudest place I've ever been. You can't even read a book in there. There's so much loudness in there, you know, let alone like going to the yard and, you know, and then there's a person that comes to the door and says, hey, these are the rules here. You don't want to go by these rules, then you're not gonna be here no more. So like, you know, things are real. And the reason why I like telling this stuff because we don't need to glorify it. It's not somewhere for us as Native Americans or a human being at all needs to be in there to be caged up like an animal. So with that being said, like you know, you see separation, you're like, man, that's my friend. And I mean, if he's not your race, you can't go hang out with him, you know. And you're like, dang, that was my like real tough friend on the streets. It doesn't matter. You can't hang out with anybody except your people. And then let alone only being like sometimes three, four, five. Like Sal says, the average number is 7. Sometimes when we get 15 of us Indians on the yard, we're doing good. But nine out of 10 times, it's 7 or less that are on the yard. So you really got to look out for each other. And then, you got to deal with other people's personalities. You don't know about their personalities. So you're just meeting these people the first time and you have to trust them for the rest of the time you're locked up. Like it's a lot. It's a lot to burden on yourself. And then on top of that, the COs tell you what to do. And if you don't do it, you'll feel what a nightstick feels like. And you also feel what those rubber bullets or that pepper spray feels like. So it's not nothing fun. So, I did some time. I didn't learn my lesson either. I kept repeating myself. And then this last time before I came on, I had 27 life without. And so I had the opportunity of a lifetime an opportunity of a lifetime, and I was in there like really just stir crazy, like didn't care about anything. When they say, and I don't like cussing, but when people say I don't really give a fuck, you know, you really don't at that point, you really don't care about nothing. You know what I mean? Like, and so if it wasn't for the time that I was in the hole and my family shooting me letters saying, hey, we're done with you. And I was like, what? What are you doing? What do you mean you're done with me? Like, all I have is you. And they're like, no, we're done. Like, you just keep getting in trouble. All you care about is packages. All you care about is stamps and food. Like, we're done. Like, you wiped yourself away from us and quit caring for us. Man, if it wasn't for that breakdown that night, I would still be in there. And then ever since then, when I started taking college classes, I started caring what being clean and sober was. I started caring what my feelings were. I started caring about all these things in there. And it's hard to even do that because if you run on the main yard, you can't even show those type of things. So, going to school gives you a whole different concept of things. And so what I did is I went in there and I became a mechanic. I went in there and I became a welder. I went in there and I just started working on myself, at the same time, making sure I do what I do on the yard. But if it wasn't for, like, I don't know what it is, like, and I believe everything happens for a reason, and I believe that people's prayers are strong, because I had a lot of people praying for me to come home, and then just one day I got this letter underneath the door, and it says, "Hey, we're going to take you back to court because your co-defendant wants to restart trial." And I just so happened to be lucky enough to go back there, and I just sat there, and they're like, hey, we're going to reduce your sentence. And I was like, wow, it was the best blessing I ever had in my life because freedom is definitely, people need to cherish that freedom, cherish your freedom. And so for me, like, and at the end of that, like, I just, remind people, like, I would never send my worst enemy there. And I don't feel anybody should ever be in a cage. We're not animals. We might have some issues, but and the bottom line is when community says that we're a community and we take care of each other, regardless of, what our community members are like. So with that, I'll end with that part for about the prison side. We'll keep going.
Hey, brother, I appreciate your honesty and just being, keeping it real and just, being honest about your story and your life because a lot of people they don't want to share that. And I appreciate you being authentic and being real. That's what it's about. Real natives telling their story and having that platform to share. And hopefully somebody is going to watch this and realize, hey, that maybe that route's not good for me. So the next question I had, and I know you had mentioned it the last time you was locked up, about what age would you decided to throw that towel in and say, fuck, I'm done with this. Enough's enough. I want to be good. About what age and go from there.
So I'm gonna tell you the truth. Like my first term started at the age of 16. My first prison term started at the age of 17, and I did the 90-day op, and they didn't stop till then. I was locked up majority of that time till the age of 42 is when I threw in the towel. When I was in the hole, I didn't have a date, and my family was like, no more packages, no more letters, no more stamps, and they're like, unless you change your life, unless you start working on yourself. At the age of 42, man, I just had a prayer with Creator, and I was like, Creator, like, all right, it's time for me, like, to really start believing in, like, and I'm gonna say the reality is, like, would my grandmother appreciate how I was treating myself after what she taught me and how much she cared. So at the age of 42 was the time I was realized, like, man, it's time to actually stop hurting myself. And then, like I said, I stopped that drinking, the drugging, and all those things in there. Like, it's been a while. I'm 49 years old now. So the time is not that long, but man, it sure seems like a long time since I did anything bad.
That's good. That's good. I'm glad to hear that you still are a warrior, but you're doing it in a constructive way. So let's move ahead and discuss what you're doing now to help the Native community now in your life. What are you doing? Can you share a little bit about that?
I got a lot to share about that. I have a lot of hats. Um, I'll just say this for my work environment. I work for a housing authority, the Indian Housing Authority here in Ukiah, California. We have 8 tribes that we work for. But my specialty is ROS coordinating. And what I do is I make sure that, you know, mental capacity, homelessness, hopelessness, building their credit, building their stamina, building their confidence in being who they are. There's not a lot of programs that just give money. So you got to create that resources for our tribal members in our community to say, look, if I could do it, you could do it. So what my main goal is like in life is if I could get somebody to really believe in themselves and believe that they could own a home one day, or they could actually own a car, or they could have a budget, they can make sure they have a savings. That's what, for me, that's my job description, but I love doing it. On top of that, I get to deal with people that need that extra help with rehabilitation. Like, I know how it is. Like, I have Hilltop over there in Clear Lake Oaks that helps me out so much with our clients, and I also work with the tribal helps. But and then this other thing that comes up is that for UCSF I had live experience, so we did a survey in California for the last 2 years, and it just came out today. The study came out today. They did this big old thing, and so what it is that I've been fighting for Native American funding. I've been fighting for the housing. At when I was young, or like when we were young and when we had housing like 30 plus years ago, it was not given to them, but the generation before us, they had the opportunity to have housing. We don't have that opportunity at our age. Nobody came to us and said, hey, you can sign up for this house. All you got to do is do this. They said that was the only housing we're allowed to have for the rest of our lifetime. I didn't think that was fair. So I'm over here advocating right now to try to find that place where we have a new set of homes that are built, a new 60 houses for each rancheria, because our generation keeps going. We can't keep those houses that were sustainable 40 years ago because they were never built right. So I could go into all this advocacy about that, but also what I do, I also work with the kids, with the programming for the kids of teaching them boundaries. I do anything for kids. I'll do the big times. I do language for the kids. I do dancing for the kids. Anything that I could do for a kid, I'm there. Because I understand what suicide is as a youth. I tried attempted myself as a youth, so that's one of my passionate things. And also is overdose. These kids do not know what they're putting in their system nowadays. So whatever I can do, I also got a T-Lock grant to make sure that naloxone's out in the community. And the difference is for me is that I just don't do on reservation, I do off reservation. I go to the places that nobody wants to go. Like, I know it's a trap house, but I'm gonna go knock on a door because it ain't because of my fear, it's because my want to help somebody. So I'll go knock on a door and say, hey man, can I just show you how to use this? So just in case somebody tries to harm themselves in here, or here, just test your drugs with fentanyl strips. I'm all for it. Like, and people are, it's only because people have fear of those things. I don't have that fear. What I have is the need to try to help my community at all costs, at all hours. And I'll just say, like, from 2 years ago, the advocacy that I had is a lot less than it was, the drive, because more people are getting involved. The more people are getting involved to help our community. Like this picture behind me, this week, it's going to be the last year for the 500 Spirit Runners to run from Pitt River down to Consolidated Tribal Health. And so I've been blessed to allow for them to allow me to be a part of that spiritual aspect with them. And they're going to come and run into Consolidated on Friday. And so I've been allowed to have like their agenda done and making sure they're taken care of. And it's a big, huge thing for me for these elders that been holding it down for 40, 30, 50 years. And I'm allowed to, be a part of that promotion and the advocacy. And that's what it's about, right? And then on top of that, like my boss and my boss and a couple workers around here, like they do anything they can to try to help somebody. Like even if we don't have the money for it, we'll figure it out. Like there's always a way to figure out. It's about the people you put in your circle that helps you do these things. And then for me, like you can know, like Indian dancing is my thing, right? Like I love to sing. I definitely I'm out to say I'm a decent rock man. And I was watching you and Mud the other day, and Mud will say the same thing. I'm a decent rock man, like I'm just as loud as my teacher Dave. So I just have to say, for me, it's about, in the end result, for me, it's about the youth. I do a lot of work for youth. I do a lot of work for the people that are out there struggling, and my prayers are for them. My prayers are with them, but I just can't pray for them. I got to do some work. I got to do some advocacy. I got to get out there and a lot of miles on my car are for helping people. And I get, and I'll do 100,000 miles on my vehicle every year. I'm proud of it. People say, "Dang, you do too much," but my war pony has to do what it's got to do. You know what I mean? If I have to take 5 people to treatment, we're going to treatment. If I have to pick up 5 people from a party to take them somewhere safe, then that's what's going to happen. But otherwise, I love what I do. I love the work that I do. There's probably more to it, but I try not to glorify what I do. I just try to say, "Hey, man, let's push you to do that too," because everybody has an idea, and sometimes they want to push it. You should do this. No, I'm going to tell you, you do it, and I'll support you on doing it because I need your help. And that's the difference between what people used to do for me back then and what I do now is like, "Hey, come on, man. It takes all of us to do this." So I love my job. I love all my boards. I love all these little things I'm a part of. Like this has probably been the best year of my life. And that's the honest truth. With the suicide prevention, with the overdose, with the homelessness, I could go on and on, but in all honesty, this is probably the best year of my life so far.
You sound like a busy man, and I want to say thank you for all your work to the community, for the elders, for the children, for the men, for the women, for people that are unfortunate left behind. We are the minorities of the minorities, and it's good to hear that you're helping everyone. You're not just taking one side. You're doing best for everyone, and that's well needed. And you are a good leader for doing that. I have a couple more questions for you, and I do appreciate you taking time out of your day. So the next question is I would say kind of deep. And it's you, Priest Martinez. What do you want to be remembered for when it's all said and done? We throw in our towel, we're making that spiritual journey, going to go see the Creator. What do you want people to say about you?
Man, I'm going to have to say, I want the people here on earth to remember me by that I had a beautiful spirit. That I did everything that I could, and just to be appreciative, and people, I don't want people to ever cry. Like it's an opportunity for me to see my grandmother again. It's an opportunity to see my family that aren't here no more. And I try to teach my kids and people around me, like it's an honor to go to the spirit world, to that big old field of flowers that we pray for to see, like that path. I really believe in that center pole. I believe in that roundhouse, and I believe in my spirituality. And if I get to leave something and hope people remember me by, is that I was happy. I was happy here on this planet. This just meet me. I was happy and I made them smile because that's what I try to do all day long. I have that Indian humor just like anything else. I'm quick wit like anybody else, and I shoot and I have a gift of gab, So that's what I know what I'm going to be remembered for, because I'm going to be predictable. If my kids ask me for something, they know what I'm going to say. If the dance group's going to say, "Oh, Priest," we already know what Priest is going to say when we're if they serve alcohol and drugs at that event. We're not going. That's not what we do. We dance spirit. We dance for prayers. We don't dance for a show. I want to be predictable in my lifestyle. I want people to say, we already know what Priest is going to say because he has boundaries. He has his morals and values. So for me, that's what I want to be remembered by is just my morals and values and that good humor.
So last question we got here, brother. Any words of wisdom that you want to tell the next generation?
Man, I always have something positive say for the next generation. And if I was to talk to myself at the age 12, what would I tell him to change? I definitely would tell him to change I want them to build their courage, to build their self-worth up. It makes a difference when you're confident in something because you're going to make mistakes after mistakes after mistakes. And if you're still around, then you're around for a purpose and you just got to keep finding that purpose because everybody has their own path. Mine's not going to be the same as somebody else's. So don't put yours as somebody else's the same path. You're going to have your own. Like mine's my own. But I just don't want I want you to always build that confidence up because shoot for the stars. No there I've seen people say things are unimaginative. I've seen everything that I never thought can happen. And I've seen people that believe in things, and I've seen people believe in prayers. I've seen happen in those prayer rooms and those roundhouses that it's not unbelievable. It's all about you and your conviction in yourself, in your community, in your prayers, and in nobody's different than the other. Like I don't judge. I don't think that church is different than roundhouse. It's just people interpret their own ways of how they seek creator. And I'm okay with that, and I'll never judge anybody. I don't want to ever be, don't judge. Don't judge anybody. Everybody has their own path. Just help them up, pick them up when somebody's down. You know, in the end, so it's gonna just be between you and creator. That's it. Nobody else is gonna have that. Only you and creator are gonna have that conversation of, you know, did I have to change or did I do right? And I guarantee you, creator doesn't judge either. He just like, man, you could have did something different. You could have chose it. That's why I said, like, build your confidence up and make some good choices. Take a healthy risk. That was one that was really, really I live with because it's like, man, I don't want to jump out of a tree on a rope. You know what I mean? It might fall on me. Try it. It might be the funnest thing you ever did. And culture cures. And if you really, really, just for me, if I could give you some advice, man, culture does cure. You just got to find the right people to talk to. And those other people that have been holding on to things, they come out and help you out. I've been doing this for a while. I've been doing the Indian thing for a while, the cultural thing for a while. And sometimes it's not about judgment. Those people just want to talk to you and give you a different interpretation because there's a lot of different teachings. I'll just say that. So don't take nothing personal. Elders speak in a way that sometimes is harmful, but you got to get the message, man. You got to get the message. Just don't take nothing personal from people when they have their opinions, they have all these things, and um, it's not you, and don't take on bad behaviors. Once you realize that you took on a bad behavior because you don't like what somebody else is how they're treating you, don't do it because you're gonna break that cycle where we don't do those things no more. And for you, the next generation, you're not gonna go as hard. You're gonna have to go through as hard stuff as we did. You're going to have it easier, but you're also going to be the more intelligent one. Thank you.
I want to thank my guest Priest for sharing his story. And for those viewers, I want you to encourage you to like and subscribe, leave a comment section. So leave a comment in the section part and we'll get some dialogue going, hold the conversation going. And for those that want to be on the show, go ahead and hit us up in the comment section and we would love to get your story. With that being said, I want to tell everyone to be safe and tell those that you love them. Oh.